Shalom, family. Thank you so much for joining us here at Remnant House, the home of the strong and the very courageous. And of course, this is our weekly news update. We normally have this on Yom Shani, but we had massive technical difficulties and storms in the area yesterday. So we unfortunately were not able to put the broadcast out, but decided to go ahead and give it another shot today. So thankfully, we're able to still get our weekly report. Unfortunately, a little bit later than normal. So thank you again for your patience and your grace. We are remote out here, and sometimes, well, weather doesn't always cooperate. And I tell you what, from the time that we would have been on, our power reset must have been 4 or 5 times after that. So even if I had pulled off the initial broadcast, it would have just continued to cycle. So that wasn't a good scene, and we knew that was a challenge. And glad we're able to get together today. And for those of you that are maybe catching on to what we do here, basically we do a weekly news update as opposed to every hour or every day, which for many people created a lot of anxiety and, of course, was unfruitful. And then there were those who said, I'm disconnecting completely, and they couldn't tell you anything that was going on in the world for the last 6 months because they completely disconnected. We found that to be the extreme to the other side. So we decided and came, I believe, to a really good place with our weekly news update. We're able to get together, get through some of the things that are going on in the world from a biblical perspective, right? So we're looking at things through the scriptural lens and taking the 10,000-foot view. And what we like to say around here is we like to be informed without being overwhelmed. And in that effort, we have, of course, our website, remnantwatch.com, a labor of love, where you'll find all the stories that we're covering. Of course, the banner at the top normally brings you on Yom Shani, and of course, tonight is the exception. And we do have these handy guides, and they continue, folks, every single week being relevant in the earth today. So too many places are suddenly having emergencies. So if you haven't already, you may want to download those. And we have this search bar here for those of you that may want to take a look at how frequently some of these things are occurring. We are seeing some consistency. We are seeing some things that indicate to us that what we see is cyclical. And that has that's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you almost feel like you're on a conveyor belt you can't get off. Wow, that's a feeling. On the other hand, there's a measure of predictability. And when you can predict something, you can anticipate it, right? And so just like you can anticipate the snow in the winter and the heat in the summer, you can start anticipating some of these cycles, some of the ways in which, well, humanity moves. And so this is one of the things that we'd like to take a look at from the 10,000-foot view. And again, looking at things through the biblical lens, right? So looking at things from that biblical perspective and trying desperately to make sure it makes sense. And on that note, let's get into the news. And tonight's top story is an interesting one coming out of Eastern Europe, folks. Because the tide may be turning in an interesting way. Many of us expected Russia to run right over Ukraine. I don't know too many people that were expecting Ukraine to even still exist once Russia turned its military upon it. But surprisingly, this little feisty state remains in the fight. And now there's talk, let me close that off. Now there's talk that Putin could be forced to surrender, folks. Can you believe this? He could be forced to surrender in months as Ukraine has gone on a campaign to cripple their supplies. And so this has been a very interesting campaign. Ukraine cripples Russia like never before with an endgame blitz. And it has been, in fact, stunning as their attacks are occurring deep within Russia. The reports that are coming out are quite stunning, frankly. As Kiev launches a crippling endgame blitz, Vladimir Putin may be forced to end his war in Ukraine in just months, experts say, and the infrastructure damage is severe. Ukraine's relentless strikes on Russian energy infrastructure could freeze the Kremlin's war machine by next year. And after all, they've got to be able to keep things moving. Stunning footage shows an oil refinery on the outskirts of Moscow blowing up after the Ukraine strike on June 18th. So this just happened. Retired Army officer Ben Hodges says momentum has clearly shifted in Ukraine's favor following a string of recent Russian setbacks. And we were reporting how they were attacking supply lines, attacking their ability to supply their troops. This is huge. Putin's regime is facing fuel shortages, energy blackouts, and long queues for gas as Kiev continues to blast oil depots and refineries. His frontline troops continue to take heavy losses, with a shocking report revealing that Russian soldiers have an average life expectancy of just 20 minutes on the battlefield. 20 minutes. Somebody tell me how this is a good thing for any nation, for anyone doing anything. I know I'm a bit on a soapbox here on this particular topic. You know how I feel about war. You know how I feel about conflict like this. I don't believe that this is the correct message that we're going to send to our young people, that whoever has the most weapons is the one that wins the argument. Think that through. Think that through. You don't have to keep your deals. You don't have to keep your agreements. You don't have to actually be honorable people. Nope, you just have to have bigger weapons than the other guy. How many know that the expiration date on tyranny has, I believe, finally come to earth? I believe tyranny is losing its luster. Now the Iranians are asking for Donald Trump's head. I mean, they're basically asking him to stand trial for war crimes. Ukraine is unleashing one of its heaviest drone bombardments of Russia. The major attack comes hours after Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky said on X that he had ordered a 40-day influence operation, believed to mean an escalation of attacks. And that's exactly what's going on. A massive escalation is going on, and Russia is really getting hit hard. Russian air defenses intercepted 660 Ukrainian drones in a major nighttime attack on 12 Russian regions, as well as the Russian-held Crimean Peninsula, the Black Sea, and the Azov Sea, Russia's defense ministry said on Friday. It appears to be one of the biggest drone attacks on Russia and the what they're calling the illegally annexed Crimea since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Now, take in mind and bear in mind that whenever we're reading news, you got to always look at where it's coming from. So this is NBC News. So NBC News can't be trusted to be unbiased. It is definitely slanted to a particular point of view. But nevertheless, it will report, or they will report, more or less accurate information. So what do we know from this? We know that Russia is taking some damage, that the Ukrainians are finally able to cripple Russia in a way that is meaningful and may, in fact, bring Russia to the negotiating table. Now, does that mean that they're on par with them in military? No. It just means they've become a big enough nuisance, a big enough pain to Russia that it may be not worth continuing the conflict, which, frankly, I think is good news. How about you? What do you think? Do you think it's good news that they finally reached a point where they can't continue the conflict because it's stupid? Gee, when wasn't it stupid? Just saying, just asking for a friend. Here's another one that I, loathe having to report on, but here we go again. U.S. strikes Iran in response to drone attacks on a ship, the U.S. military says. Tit for tat, here we go again. Tit for tat, tit for tat. It's never any different, and this goes on forever, folks. So here we go. The U.S. struck Iran on Friday in response to a drone attack on a cargo ship in the Straits of Hormuz a day earlier. And, of course, they just can't just stop each other, so they got to all attack each other. Look at this. President Donald Trump had said attacking the ship violated the ceasefire. So right away, we've got to attack you right back. This is just so tiresome. U.S. Central Command said the military struck missile and drone locations and coastal radar sites in Iran. This comes during a fragile time as the U.S. and Iran are negotiating an interim peace deal. Trump also threatened a 100% tariff on imports from any nation that taxes digital services from U.S. companies, specified singling out Europe. His post on social media said those nations are considered eminent taxes and that the tariff would override any previous negotiated trade agreement. So he's just picking fights with everybody. The man has flat lost his mind, had a legacy he wanted to build. Somebody didn't let him do it, and now he's just mad. He's just mad at everybody for everything. So this is not... Somebody says, what could go wrong? you got a guy with nuclear footballs, and he's just mad. He's just mad at the world. He's mad at everybody. Okay, what could go wrong? Got to keep praying, folks. Got to pray for these people to have cooler heads and for some wisdom to prevail so we can stop doing dumb things. Because some of this is really not our finest hour, I'll say, right? We're not as proud as we should be of our decisions here. My goodness. And of course, here we go again. U.S. launches additional strikes. Yes, sure. Let's go. Keep shooting. That's going to make everything better. And of course, they continue to justify it because, of course, oh, nope, they're the bad guys. Nope, they're the bad guys. They're the bad guys. So we are totally justified. I'm not even going to read the rest of this. We're totally justified in striking and attacking. And this is the way we resolve our problems and issues. And if they wanted the war to go on and on and on, this is the way they do it. You see this? And there are many who believe that that's exactly what they want. They want a constant distraction. They don't want to return to domestic issues. They don't want to return to, I don't know, prosecution of people that are turned up in certain files, maybe. Who knows? The U.S. military has conducted strikes on Iranian targets after President Donald Trump accused Iran of a foolish violation of its truce following an attack on a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. So again, what are we going to continue to see here is we're going to continue to see that anytime they want to, Iran can throw these Straits of Hormuz right back into chaos again at any time. And yes, the United States will retaliate. Yes, they'll blow up the side of a mountain, close a wall or a window, or blow up a truck or something. But at the end of the day, they're going to do it again. And they keep showing you that. So this method of tit for tat has not been successful. Let's take a look at Hezbollah in northern Israel. Tit for tat hasn't worked. Hamas in Gaza, okay, in Gaza. Now, Israel promised regime change in Iran. They couldn't even handle Hamas in Gaza right there. Still can't. So clearly what we've got is a disconnect from what they think they can do, what they profess to everyone they're going to do, and what's real, what's reality on the ground. Okay? And so some of this is really just pushing hard to make their reality like sort of come to pass, even though it doesn't match on the ground. And this is where you always see the rub. Every single time, you'll see it in every generation. And here we go seeing it again. We saw it in the 70s. We saw it in the 80s. We saw it in the 90s. And then finally the stories would come out. Finally the truth would come out. And you'd have to go back and go, oh, so that's why they were doing this. You know, Iran-Contra and all the other things. You find out later, decades later, why it was really going on, what was really happening. And I believe they're trying desperately to save a failed banking system, a failed central system, a failed government program meant to be a one world system that has collapsed in their hands. Can you put Humpty Dumpty back together again? I don't know, guys. What do you think? I don't think you can, but they're still trying. Trump is now pressing Syria to take on Hezbollah and is raising alarm in Lebanon and in Israel. Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara has said he has no interest in doing so and has asserted that Trump's comments were misconstrued. But it really is seeming that they're trying to put pressure on Hezbollah and Hamas to sort of go along to get along. Okay, these are people that have been on the ground, punished by policies that have been implemented, and they're supposed to just go along. It's not going to work out. As the White House is soured on Israel's war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, U.S. President Donald Trump has shocked many in the region by pushing an alternative. Let Syria fight the Iran-backed militant group instead. And this way, it's not a religious war or, Jew versus Arab. It will be Arab. And maybe that looks better. It's still conflict. He has suggested that the battle-hardened Islamist-led insurgents who overthrew Syria's autocratic President Bashar Assad a year and a half ago and formed a new government would do a better job of rooting out Hezbollah than the Israeli army. The Syrian president said he has no interest in doing so and has asserted that Trump's comments were taken out of context. I think what Trump tries to do is drop what he thinks are subtle hints. They're not so subtle. They're pretty much right on top of your head. But he drops these statements so that, hoping that people pick up his hint and run with it. And unfortunately, he did not get the run that he was expecting from the Syrian president. So he's going to have to call him back to the White House and school him again and say, now, the next time I say something like that, you back me up. Watch, I bet you. He's going to call him up and go, you made me look bad, right? Because Trump likes to do things that way. He doesn't actually have a formal arrangement. He just wants to imply it. He just wants to say something off the cuff and everybody back him up so that he never looks like a liar, okay? Which is pathological. So there's that. As a matter of fact, not only is it not working, it's backfiring. And how do we know? All we got to do is look around a person and see what's going on. And some of these things indicate a lot to us. Now, again, they could be slanted, but they do indicate some of the things that may be going on back there, right? So Trump's top generals are walking out of the Pentagon as Hegseth moves to gut his command in sweeping purge. This is coming out of the Daily Mail. And of course, they have their slant as well. But you got to take a look at this stuff. Donald Trump's top army general has abruptly resigned as Pete Hegseth pushes to demote his command and purge the Pentagon's senior ranks, sidelining top officers with a little explanation. And of course, they're panicking because they need what they perceive to be loyalty, as everyone does in a conflict. Now you're seeing the potential of war crime tribunals. There's some that are calling in other foreign countries for those who have committed certain acts to be charged. That's a real threat, folks. When you start a conflict, you had better have the high ground. And so Donahue is a decorated officer who commanded the Army's elite Delta Force and amassed 2 decades of combat experience, and he has long been seen inside the Army as one of its top leaders and a potential future chief of staff. So his departure is a sudden one as commander of the 82nd Airborne during the 2021 U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Donahue was the last American service member to leave the country, captured in a now famous night vision image as he boarded a C-17. So his departure comes as Hegseth was preparing to downgrade Donahue's post from a 4-star command to a 3-star one, as sources told ABC News. And of course, in military parlance, that's basically a slap in the face. And so just so you guys understand, from a military person's standpoint, that takes a long time to work your way up to a 4-star command. A person sacrifices a great deal. And for some guy who got appointed by the latest president to come in and just basically demoralize that and demolish it, I'm sure it was a difficult thing for them to take. So just understand these dynamics continue, and they are going to affect us as nations, not just the United States, but partner nations on either side of this conflict are being affected by these silly decisions. So again, folks, all part of our prayers, things that we keep an eye on as we walk. After all, we are subject to mankind and what mankind is doing. We have to deal with it, right? Wise as serpents, harmless as doves, but we still got to walk through it all, okay? We still got to walk through it all. And Iran's not backing down, folks. It doesn't matter what the United States seems to throw at them. Iran continues to reassert that they have authority over the Strait of Hormuz. And so they continue to reassert the right to control shipping. And of course, this continues to be the point of contention. Tehran asserted its right on Friday to control shipping in the Strait of Hormuz and warned Gulf states against siding with the U.S. a day after an attack on a ship near Oman highlighted the fragility of a preliminary deal to end the war. And Iran was responding to what it called interventionist, irresponsible, and provocative joint statement by the United States and six Gulf states that rejected Iran's insistence that it could charge tolls on vessels transiting the strait. And so, of course, since there are several countries that border this particular part of waterway, it makes sense that there would be pushback against one particular country by threat of force simply demanding a payment for passage. Now, it does appear that in this instance, Iran, not responding to physical force, but responding to rhetoric, went kinetic. So now they lost the high ground on that one, right? This is where, folks, this is where wise diplomacy should prevail. That's a moment where you got some high ground back. Don't shoot back. Use that, because you lost a lot of high ground on a few other incidents. This will be a good moment to say, now, we thought we had a deal. Here you are calling our integrity into question, and now you're doing this. When you're reacting to words with this, right? So this probably would have been wiser. But instead, what did they do? They went brute force, because brutes are brutes, and there's that. We know that we need wisdom at the front. Some of this is really, really foolish, and continuing this conflict, regardless of who they think will, quote, win, which one will suffer no damage? Neither. So there are no winners. If you could win it with no damage, that'd be one thing. You can't. So there are no winners. There's going to be mitigation, and that's reality. Switching gears, the Earth appears to be responding. How many are taking note of how many earthquakes we're suddenly starting to see? And they're coming, of course, in places that we expected. There was a magnitude 5.6 earthquake that rattled Northern California. And so some injuries were reported, thousands lost power. And this, of course, is becoming more frequent. A magnitude 5.6 earthquake shook Northern California on Wednesday morning, knocking out power to thousands in Mendocino County and sending items plunging off shelves at stores and homes. Officials said some injuries were reported. So are we working ourselves up to a bigger event? I believe a lot of people are calling that and talking about it, and it's getting a little bit spooky with regard to the earthquakes. What do you guys think? I'd love your thoughts on that, because it seems as if, despite all the other things going on, the earth itself is responding. Okay, so this is something that can't be faked by man, and you know, it just is a reality that we're now dealing with. Okay, so this is unfortunately where we are, and I think we're going to continue to see more reactions from creation. Take a look at this. Power for 6.9 magnitude earthquake strikes off northern Japan. So that ring of fire continues to be lit up. Something we talked about many, many times in this broadcast, and we're continuing to see more and more evidence of that shaking. Powerful earthquake struck off Japan's northern coast on Thursday, but the country's meteorological agency said there was no danger of a tsunami. The quake had a preliminary magnitude of 6.9. That's significant, guys. That's enough to shake buildings. That's enough to do damage if it hits in a certain spot. So if it happens off the coast, well, that's actually a fortuitous thing. It occurred off the eastern coast of Iwate, the Japan Meteorological Agency said, and the quake had a depth of about 50 kilometers, it said. And the U.S. Geological Survey also reported a magnitude of 6.9. So what's going on underneath the Pacific Ring of Fire? And of course, we're not done, because as many of you know, there was a massive earthquake that hit Venezuela. And actually was a pair of earthquakes that hit Venezuela. And this was absolutely devastating. Any of you that are looking at the imagery and footage that is coming out of this, it's heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching. experience that are going on now in Venezuela. I don't even have words for some of what is coming out of this horrible, horrible event. And it goes to show you that these structures have been dilapidated, have spent many years in a socialist government. And on the evening of June 24th, 2 earthquakes struck in quick succession in northern Venezuela, around 170 kilometers west of the city Caracas. Thousands of people have been reported injured. More than 1,450 have been, in fact, certified to have been killed. And so relief organizations say out the first 72 hours after a natural disaster is the most crucial time period for rescues, and though survival can be extended if people have access to food and water, unfortunately, it does not look good. And they are still missing 70,000 people. So there have been nearly 60 earthquakes in Venezuela's region within a strength of 6.0 magnitude or more since 1900, but it's been 100 years since they've had one of this magnitude. So what's going on? We got a whole lot more shaking than normal going on. We normally have a little bit of shaking, but we got a little more than normal, guys. And so there now still remains, as I've reported, 70,000 people still missing following the twin quakes. And they are facing a humanitarian crisis. So first of all, we encourage you all, first of all, to say your prayers for those who are not only suffering mourning right now in Venezuela, but are also those who are in the process of having to find the hurting, try to dig them out of the rubble. That is horribly difficult to do. And catastrophic twin earthquakes in Venezuela last week have taken the lives of 1,430 people, with at least 68,900 people missing. Now, you know as well as I do that means that number of 1,430 people that are dead or certified as gone is about to rise dramatically. So we are looking at a massive disaster in Venezuela. And of course, you know, Venezuela was already on our radar for other reasons. And now this tragedy occurs. So continue to pray for those in that harm's way, that place right now. And we continue to see more things that are, again, indicating that the ring of fire is really heating up. These articles are all over the place, guys. So I just bring them up because there seems to be more and more information and more indication. The Pacific Ring of Fire rattle as strong earthquakes strike Japan, the Philippines, and Nicaragua. So again, the West Coast is rattling right now. We got a whole lot of shaking going on. A whole lot of shaking going on. And we also have heat waves. How many have been hearing about this? For those of you that are paying attention, there was record heat waves in Europe that cost lives. And this is really sad to see. But their mortuaries are even overwhelmed just because of the number of people that are passing away. So left families, of course, in distress as they're having to deal with their loved ones. Every few minutes, the mortuary owner's phones ring. Record-smashing heat waves started taking lives and storage space for bodies in Paris and beyond. The funeral directors and mourning families calling and mostly have the same question: do you have room for one more? Isn't that sad? What a terrible tragedy that we're now watching unfold. And this is happening, of course, right in Europe. And of course, there were warnings about the El Nino, right? That we would see record heat. And maybe we're going to see that here. I'll tell you right now, we need to continue to pray. I told you guys weeks ago, we need to pray for the United States, especially the Western United States, that it's experiencing serious drought. And we need to pray for rain. And as the remnant pray for rain, you pray for rain, I believe Yahuwah will answer. But you have to keep at it. You cannot take it for granted. And you've got to remember that we're praying for repentance. We've got to pray that repentance comes in, because this is real. Okay, this is real. And so these heat waves are real. These things are happening for real. Now, we saw another earthquake in a place that we don't. So diverse places, remember this, right? So this might not have been a very big earthquake, but it's the fact that it's all over. Look at that. Magnitude 3.5 earthquake jolts southern Illinois, felt by hundreds across multiple states. So even the places that don't normally get earthquakes are getting shaken right now. And that should concern everybody. As these things occur, as we see evidence that the earth is responding in a way that, man doesn't control, we need to take note of that. In addition to that, we've got infrastructure damage and things happening around us that may affect you in ways you didn't anticipate. Okay, especially if you're traveling. Millions are being warned to brace for blackouts as extreme wildfire threats sweep across 9 states. Now, how many people were really planning on thinking about this? You might not have been, right? And so this is one of the things that I think are going to really cause problems in America. We've got a big country, and infrastructure across this country is aging badly, right? So millions of Americans have been warned to prepare for possible power outages as a sprawling outbreak of extreme fire weather threatens 9 states this weekend. The National Weather Service offices in Arizona and Alaska have issued red flag warnings, citing volatile combination of powerful winds, bone dry air, and tinderbox conditions that could allow any spark to explode into a fast-moving wildfire. So they're talking, of course, about Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, and Oregon. Utah and Alaska are also on the list. These are the states that we were pointing out just a few weeks ago with regard to drought. So we need to continue to pray for rain. And in some areas, forecasters warn that gusts could reach 55 miles an hour while humidity levels plunge as low as 5%. So that does make for some tinder and some fire conditions across the region. So, but I don't know that there's a single state that doesn't have at least some portion that is suffering some type of drought. So this is a very interesting time in America's history. We need to continue to pray for recovery from this battle that we're in. And in fact, there's several warnings talking about potential blackouts. This is one of the things that we believe very strongly here at New Kingdom. We need to be preparing for. We take energy very seriously here. Not going to get into that again. We've got solutions that we'll be implementing at camps in strategic places around the United States. And we anticipate this being a major issue, especially now as you're seeing them choosing between their infrastructure and their AI and people. And who do they choose, guys? Yeah. You got to be paying attention to this stuff. They're warning us. Without really saying it, they're saying it. Exelon CEO warns the U.S. could face blackouts by 2027. Blackout risk warning. Exelon's CEO says AI-driven. See this? Right there. Here you go. Okay. What did I just tell you? Right? AI-driven electricity demand could cause U.S. blackouts as soon as 2027. With the Northeast and Midwest most at risk. What? Look at the population density in Northeast. Crazy. Midwest is right behind it. So the grid shortfall forecast projects 60 supply gaps over the next decades, gigawatt supply gaps. Last auction showed 6.5 gigawatt deficit, underscoring urgent capacity needs. So capacity is the issue here, folks. Without the capacity, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what rate you're willing to pay per kilowatt. It doesn't matter. The fact is, they don't have it. So we needed a dramatic increase in energy production before we created an energy drawdown. So what did we do that was unintelligent? 3 major things that we put on the grid. Okay? 3. 1, electric cars. You guys remember those? Yeah. Then 2, cryptocurrency. You guys remember that? Yeah. Then AI. So 3 major things were put on an already weakened grid, and nobody thought. They thought about as much about it as they did putting homes in Arizona with no water. Now they have entire communities that are threatened and may not even be livable. People bought houses and they can't even live in them because they may not be able to live in them because they may not have any water. And I got to tell you something, nothing will ruin a $500,000 house like no water. I mean, it doesn't matter how nice the house is if you got no water. I'm telling you that right now. And even Oregon just got another Another hit, we just saw this earthquake, a 5.5 earthquake that struck off the Oregon coast. So 2 earthquakes strike off Oregon coast on Monday morning. So a magnitude 5.5 and a 3.9. Followed about an hour later. And seismologists say both quakes occurred along the offshore fault system. So what is this indicating? Many believe that we are gearing up for a big seismic shift. The Fuca, and I see all kinds of articles on this stuff. What it tells me is the judgment is falling little by little on a nation that refuses to repent. And so this continues to be a challenge. Again, I think the drought-stricken ground is more susceptible to catastrophic shifts than if it weren't drought-stricken. So we need to pray for rain, all right? Just plain and simple. And here's some more indication. Lake Powell hits its lowest summer level ever, raising the risk of a dead pool. So here, again, those states that are affected by this, oh boy, there needs to be some prayer and repentance going on in these places. And Lake Powell, the massive Colorado River reservoir that produces power for millions of homes across the West, is the emptiest it has ever been, entering the hottest part of the summer, and the worst is yet to come. Although the lake's levels have briefly fallen lower in years past, these low water levels come in the spring before melting snow refills it. This year, that refill never happened. As a result, Lake Powell will next spring fall to minimum power pool, according to a newly released federal projection. If the water level falls below that, the Glen Canyon Dam would stop generating electricity altogether. And just like that, millions of people will be told, you're on your own. Nothing we could do. So they're walking to a catastrophe. They can see it, but there's, quote, nothing they can do because, after all, they can't control anything. They can't steer anything. They have no way of manipulating any weather to help that at all. Nope. They can't do anything like that. No, sir. Can't at all. Not even a little. Okay. So this is getting to be a very interesting conversation going on in the public. How much is self-inflicted? How many things are things that they could affect and aren't? Is this an effect of the drawdown of controls? And we're now seeing the earth behaving more naturally? Some people are starting to wonder if that's what we're seeing. I'll tell you one thing. Our world going forward, since we're not going back in time, you would all be experts if we were going that way. I'll say it again. You'd all be experts if we were going that way. But we're going this way. And this is where we need a lot of wisdom and a lot of discernment, because we don't know what's next. China's award-winning 6G tech turns, look at this, guys. I know you didn't see this coming. Every wall and pipe into a sensor. Chinese innovation boosts wireless data rates, reduces dead zones, and can track people and objects even underground. So now they've gotten to the point where they can use the Wi-Fi signal itself as a tracker inside of spaces. I know. The signal itself that's bouncing around your room can now track you. And they built a special metasurface system that can bounce wireless signals around like a precise mirror to fill in dead spots while still sensing people moving about it, just like radar. The innovation earned a gold award at the International Exhibition of Inventions in Geneva in March, as if it were something to be lauded, when it is a massive intrusion of privacy to be inside someone's private space and being able to, quote, map behavior. How many right now are going, that's creepy? Good. I'm glad you feel that way, because these are the fights we've got coming up in front of us. Okay? Some of you are slowly starting to realize that maybe we're being set up for some of these things right now. Now, how many were told or thought that biometrics, my goodness, that was the way they were going to go, right? And so they were going to put your face, Face ID and all that stuff was going to be the way in which they were going to do their New World Order. Here's the problem with that. If somebody steals your face data, which just turns down to numbers, by the way, all right, you can't change your face. So that system actually fails. It actually isn't very secure. It's actually a security risk because once somebody steals that face data and it gets out in the public, then, they can now use that face data to authenticate, right? And you say, who's going to do that, Peter? Who would bother to do that? Well, hackers claim to leak the stolen Madison Square Garden data. They leaked it. So they went ahead and stole the data and then put it out in the public. That includes San Francisco bars. France quits Palantir. Apple plans to change its private email and more. Why? Because they can't secure nothing. Meta, it says, in face recognition software built by Rank One, a company that supplies the U.S. military, and it doesn't matter who they supply because they can't secure it. They can talk all they want with high-tech verbiage, but the last time they were tested, military-grade classified systems were breached in less than 3 hours. That's not security. That's not security. That's our safe crackers, got to just have a few minutes to get through. That's not security, especially not for a government. All right. And so we're going to continue to see more and more calls for help there. Thankfully, the remnant showed up, but we'll talk about that. And by the way, Canada is really shifting to anti-scripture, anti-Bible. So if you're in Canada, wow, is this becoming a tougher place to preach the gospel? Removes religious speech defense. You no longer have the religious speech defense under the changes. People who make a religious statement deemed controversial by others will no longer be able to use the legal defense that they spoke in good faith. The provision of Bill C-9 will take effect after receiving a royal assent. So this is really concerning because it is legitimizing Antichrist behavior. And so here comes the persecution. Many times people only think it's in one spot. It may come from a neighboring country, may come from another place that you thought was a good bunch of folks, and next thing you know, they're doing something like that. All right, so something that I'm going to mention very quickly, only because in 2014 I was warned by Yahuwah that this would be something that would go mainstream. And sure enough, we're seeing continuing coverage of UFOs, unidentified flying objects that the public, of course, is being constantly told they're going to hear about. You're going to hear about this. And I think there's a lot of gaslighting going on and a lot of manipulation. Many of you are picking up the same thing. And we're starting to wonder what this is really all about. But we're going to continue to watch as we walk. Now, moving forward, as I said, we're moving into a brave new world. And even those with the big money and the big everything, and they think they have it figured out, even they have to resort how tech and people are going to work together. And many of you are going to be very challenged in the years to come, interacting with a world that left analog things done by man and done in the natural world to a digital world, scanners and digital commerce and so forth. This started back in the 90s, guys. So this is not a new thing. It's just picking up momentum to the point where it's really affecting employment and your lives. And Ford had to rethink its use of AI because they were overconfident. And I knew this was going to happen. This is where people have to get ready. Get ready for this moment. Be the one they call to come in because you have quality standards and capabilities the AI can't do. Ford rehires experienced engineers after AI misses the mark. 7 of Ford's top 10 models now rank in the top 3 of their respective J.D. Power segments because they hired back some of their critical personnel. So their efforts, and the reason why I bring this up is because for those people that think, oh my goodness, AI is going to take over everything. No, they went a little crazy thinking it would. Now they're coming back to sanity, and there's going to be a mix of the tech that can be helpful and people. And this is where we, the remnant, and where you, as the people out there, have to be intelligent now, because this is a massive change, no different than when we went to scanners at Walmart, right? And went from cashiers to self checkout. It's an adjustment. You have to adjust. If you don't, you're going to be impacted, right? So this is where we, as the remnant, intelligent people seeing trouble afar off, hide ourselves, know what's coming, and get prepared. So that's intelligent. That's where wisdom comes in, folks. That's what we need, okay? And that's something that we all can see coming. How many know that there are many that are very afraid that AI is taking us to a bad place? And I think they have reasonable reason for their concerns. Artificial intelligence given over to people that themselves don't have high intelligence is a bad combination, because it's too easy to default to the AI, which itself is not that intelligent. And is it moving us toward the very thing we fear? I believe so, if we as humans do not learn self-regulation. Now, the same is true with television. Television will rot your brain too if you use it too much, right? So you're the one that's got to find the off button. You got to stop thinking that society is going to cooperate and make it nice and easy for you to have a sound mind. You're not going to have a sound mind with the society that you're in. You're going to have to be set apart, or kadosh, holy. That's what that means, okay? And you're going to continue to see more and more, again, devolving of their system. Seems like periodically we're talking about a train derailment, and residents are now being required to shelter in place. It was just last year, we're talking about Ohio, this happened. This year, residents shelter in place after a freight train derails in Bensalem Township in Pennsylvania. And of course, what do we expect to see here, folks? Oh, no big deal. And the train was carrying, they warned residents that they don't want to tell them. Oh, this is really good. They're not revealing what material the train was carrying. They warned residents that possible exposure could cause difficulty breathing, loss of coordination, and burning sensations to the eyes, nose, and throat or lungs. So something chemical, something dangerous might be on the train. And somebody doesn't want to get sued, so they're not even going to tell you what it is. I mean, where are we? Where are we, folks? Right? Where are we at this point? And this is reality. This is what we are now beginning to see. And this is starting to affect employment as things, again, move digital. This starts affecting kinetic or analog employment. And the old world was an analog world. Okay. And so you're going to see things like this. BF Goodrich is closing their plant. 1,200 employees are losing their jobs. And this is Tuscaloosa in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And that tire plant in Tuscaloosa is set to close by the end of 2028, a move that will impact 1,200 people. So we're seeing more and more of these types of announcements and shifts going on in our economy, in our world, because again, this dynamic is changing. Germany is now considering raising its retirement age to 70, and there's some thinking that the U.S. is going to follow in their footsteps. So could that possibly be? I don't know. Volkswagen, normally a very stable company with a massive employment base, is now cutting 100,000 jobs. That's a lot of jobs, folks. Volkswagen, 100,000 job cut plan faces labor pushback. And Volkswagen's restructuring battle could be entering a more serious phase. Of course, labor is going to try to push back. And why? Because they're pushing against, this new reality is coming in quick. And we're not ready. And again, all the warning in the world won't make you ready if you're not willing to transition to the new world. And this new world is going to be mostly digital. A lot of digital things coming in. You're going to have to get adjusted to it because it's not going away. And so I'm running out of time, but in this story, you're going to continue to see market pressures pressuring them. And let's face it, folks, if you could hire a robot, okay, that will come do dishes in your home or dishes in your business or stack boxes or whatever, and it shows up every day, you're going to want the robot over an employee that you can't get there. No matter how much you like that employee, faithfulness consistently affects a business dramatically. So there may be some tasks that we assign to human beings that we really shouldn't have. And so I suggest that some things, if they can be done by a robot, should be. And we need to retrain so that you are not um, um, subject to these things as you once were. And hopefully can overcome, because after all, that's what the Barakah is meant to do, make you blessed in the city or in the field. So if you're not, we've got different questions to ask. This is a sad story that came out of New York, where a father is sentenced to prison in the death of a toddler daughter. And what makes this very sad is this poor child died of pestilence, something the scripture warns about in the last days. And the child was so badly abused that she had lice and had matted hair and living in unclean conditions. And the severe lice infestation that lasted weeks or months with no medical care. The infestation developed into anemia. Her teeth were rotted and black. And unlike her 4 siblings, she had received no medical care in 10 months. How hateful can people be? Pretty bad. Pretty bad. So sadly, that is the world we are living in. And this is why we need to be the light that shines in this hour. Amen. All of you, please be the light that shines in this moment. And finally, our last story for tonight is a positive one. I wanted to share a wonderful story that is unfolding right here at New Kingdom in Arizona. And of course, many of you know there was a society-wide call, a press conference for a solution to a serious security problem. That security problem is that AI, when given the task, artificial intelligence, breached even our highest security locks at the Department of Defense, and classified systems were breached in 2 hours and 17 minutes. This, as you well know, is unacceptable. If even the military cannot hold their lines and cannot keep intruders from entering using artificial intelligence tools, then we do not have security anywhere. And that is a very dangerous thought for our lives. So that includes law enforcement, that includes government facilities, that includes every area where security is expected, right? That represents a major part of the way in which our civilized society works. Without certain elements of security, that civilized society will break down very quickly, folks. All right. And so that's in fact what we're seeing happening left and right with all these breaches and so forth. So we have some good news to share. It's always nice to finish with some good news. And this is now been released as a press release. Actually was released yesterday, now being vetted through all the press release agencies and so forth. But Angel DX files a patent for the first authentication technology with no stored secret and no keyhole, provably resistant to nation-state attack and frontier AI. ImageLock DX introduces zero correlation cognitive authentication, the lock that holds because there's nothing to find. And so this was, of course, invented by yours truly under the anointing of Yahuwah. And this was filed in January of this year and has now been made ready for licensing and use in our situation. So this is a major, major breakthrough. And it is turning the entire industry essentially on its head. ImageLock DX is the first authentication technology in history that strengthens, watch this now, that strengthens as AI advances. The more capable AI enforces the zero correlation threshold more precisely, narrowing the acceptable relationship between image and phrase, tightening the mathematical guarantee, and closing whatever theoretical margin existed. The technology does not race against AI capability, it harnesses it. An adversarial deploying more powerful AI against ImageLock DX protected system is helping the system become more secure. As I said, it's the only lock that will survive the AI era, but it is not just protecting defensively. And so this is very important. Ooh, what did this guy have to say? Authentication in ImageLock DX occurs through a zero correlation relationship between a user's selected image and a cognitive passphrase, a relationship held exclusively in the user's mind, producing no stored artifact, no derivable pattern, and no attack surface. The solution is as elegant as it is powerful. This makes ImageLock DX the only lock AI cannot crack, no matter how intelligent the models get. This is the one lock that gets stronger with the improvement of artificial intelligence. I designed it to survive the AI era. It is alone in its class. Said by this guy. I don't know, some dude in Arizona. Okay, some guy, right? Now, here's the real fun part, folks. It's a reversal from a defense to an active counterintelligence device. That's right. You steal something with ImageLock DX on it. Oh, no, honey, you ain't innocent. The defensive capabilities are extraordinary. The offensive consequence, the one that has no precedent, is what happens when an adversary attempts to exploit a protected device and fails. The device OEM deployments configured for active response. A failed authentication attempt does not merely deny access, it initiates a silent cascade before the adversary knows access has been denied. GPS coordinates transmitted continuously. Front camera photograph captures without indication. They don't know they're being photographed. And a timestamp evidence file uploaded before lockdown completes. The person attempting to exploit the device photographs themselves, broadcasts their location, and cues their own prosecution file in the first 30 seconds while they're still deciding what to do with their stolen device. When a classified device is seized and transported to an adversarial collection facility where sophisticated exploitation attempts are made, watch this, folks, it transmits from inside that facility. The GPS tracks to the door photographs of handling personnel, movement data mapping the facility's collection protocols. And a capture device does not become a liability. It becomes a counterintelligence asset running passively at zero minimum marginal cost against the adversary's own apparatus. This capability does not exist in any prior technology at any price. It is direct structural consequence of an architecture with no stored secret and no keyhole. Peter takes his bow. Okay? And so next time they say, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Just remember, ImageLock DX already solved this problem. Now they just have to pay. And it ain't cheap. It's not cheap. Okay? As we have, of course, in the press releases, and we've shared this already, you guys know this, governments pay our customers. We're not selling to individuals. We're selling to entire governments, entire government departments. That's what makes the valuation of this particular patent so much, because of what the license fees will be per device, right? So per phone or per computer or per install, wherever they're needing it. They now have technology that keeps the intruder on the outside and keeps them frustrated. So for the first time, they're frustrated instead of the IT guy. Isn't that great? Yay, put the frustration where it belongs, on the bad guy's face. How many think that's just the chef's kiss? It's beautiful, right? And that's what we present and are presenting now. So thank you for praying for us and for continuing to pray for us. That's just one of 14 patents that we have here at New Kingdom. And we're super excited about being able to respond, because after all, that's quite a mess. And it's just unacceptable. And now we can remedy it. We can fix it. In fact, we can fix it in a day. All we need is the license signed. Just need the agreement signed, and we can fix it. We can fix it for any computer system, any cloud system, any server system, anything out there at all. Full white papers available at imagelockdx.com. You're all welcome to take a look. Well, that's it for tonight. I pray this broadcast has been a barakah to you all, wherever you are. And it is our delight and joy to get together with you each and every week. Thank you for sharing the link and for encouraging our brothers and sisters in Messiah to stay united, to stay in one accord. Continue standing in faith together. After all, that is where the good fruit will be found. Well, thank you again for joining us. Have a wonderful week. Shalom.